Buenos días, señores y señoras. Muy buenos días. Muchas gracias a la organización por su invitación. Es un placer de estar aquí, no solamente porque es mi primera vez en Perú, pero también porque vamos a pasar una mañana de pensar, de reflexionar en el futuro del marketing y también después lo que podríamos aprender del sector del lujo. Lo siento, mi español no es tan bueno que podría hacer toda la presentación en español, entonces con permiso voy a cambiar en inglés. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here. Good morning. We are going to talk about the future of marketing. The last 20 years I've spent helping brands, some really cool and exciting brands, growing their propositions around the world. And I thoroughly enjoy this. That's what I do for life. I help individuals, businesses, and brands to grow. Because growth is fundamentally a good thing. It's good for you as an individual, it's good for you as a business, it's good for you as a brand, and it's even good for an entire nation. We're going to look a little bit at marketing. What is this? We're looking at trends and take a step back to see what's happening around us in these times. And we'll try and bring some conclusions together as what will this mean in the future for us as marketeers. The primary objective is to stimulate your minds. You have all taken out significant time of your very busy schedules, I'm sure, and you're here to learn from speakers, from experts, and from one another. The primary purpose is to stimulate, and I hope some of these will stick. Let's talk about the future a little bit, okay? Because this is what we're here. This is what I'm here to talk about. This one here is Alice. Alice in Wonderland, a fairy tale written by Lewis Carroll a long time ago. And the story goes more or less like this. Alice is on a journey. She's traveling, and she gets into a wood. And in the wood, she comes to a fork. She doesn't know where to go. And she sees this cat on top of the tree. And she asks the cat, "Cat, where should I go?" The cat looks at Alice and says, "Well, where do you want to go?" And Alice looks up and says, "I don't know." And the cat looks at Alice and says, "Well, if you don't know where you want to go, then it doesn't really matter whether you go left or whether you go right." So clearly, if we want to talk about the future of where marketing is heading, we need to take a perspective. And I will take a perspective today. Some of it might be controversial. We might have been able to ask him where marketing is going. But of course, he's no longer amongst us, even though he might have had a really good answer for it. So this morning, we'll spend talking about the future of marketing and where it could be heading. Let's start with this. What is marketing? If I would ask 10 of you, what is marketing? How many opinions will I get? 11, right? Or more. So it's something different for anyone. I think it helps to establish of what I define and how I see this. Relatively simple. Okay, imagine this market here, and imagine I go in there to buy an apple. Not a computer, a real one. An apple, right? I go in there, and a lady says, "Well, welcome, what are you looking for?" "I'm looking for an apple." And it's nice, it's clean in there. Like we've heard at the supermarket, it's actually a pretty nice place. The lady says, "Well, here, I have apples. They're beautiful, they're juicy, they're fresh, and no artificial stuff has been used on them. They're really good. Would you like to try one?" I say, "Yes, I'd love to take a bite of this apple." I take an apple. It's juicy, it's fresh, it's tasty. Of course, I don't walk out with one apple, but I walk out with probably a whole basket of apples. So the concept is actually a really simple one. Marketing is where offer meets demand. Very, very simple, always has been. But what's happening is that the lady has actually optimized that process. She has optimized her offer in the presentation. She has optimized the process of creating demand. For what? For the benefit of making money along the way. Now, if we look at this, marketing is the process of strengthening the brand, strengthening the offer, and creating, as in optimizing, demand, as in generating profit. It's as simple as this. And Ricardo will hopefully support if I say it's a very old concept. There's nothing new here. We can go way back in time. Here, I have a picture. This is from about the year 200. It's a Roman market stall that we can see here. And in this Roman market stall, we can see a couple of things. Let me see if I can show you this. We can see a couple of things. We can see fruit. We can see, let me see. We can see fruits. We can see chickens. We can see turkey poking their heads through a cage. We can see live snails. They used to sell live snails, okay? This was all about persuasive communication. But what can we also see? What do you think this is? What could that be? These are monkeys. Monos, monkeys. Why would they have monkeys there? They were not for sale. They were real-life monkeys, by the way. They were not for sale. They were for one reason there, to attract customers, okay? It's the process of optimizing and strengthening your brand and attracting customer. It's a very old concept. Now, if we go in a very quick succession through time, in 1450, Johann Gutenberg invented the printing machine, and into very quick, rapid social change, we had revolutionary activities, and we moved very quickly into this age of industrial revolution. What happened during this time in industrial revolution? We had lots of factories like these, and they produced stuff, basically. So they produced, for example, I take this as an example here, they produce tins. Let's say they produce tins. Now this time, if I produce this tin, and I come to you, for example, and actually, you would come to me and say, I would like to buy a tin from you. And I would say, what? I have one, or I would say, I don't have one. And if I don't have one in this time, what would happen? You would go back. You would say, well, tough stuff, because you had no choice. You would go back, and I would tell you, in a week I have more tins. You would probably go back and tell some friends, in a week we can go and buy more tins, okay? It was very much a time of, I build it, and consumers will just come. Product was king, and it was relatively scarce. But what happened next is that the barriers of entry lowered. For the first time, and it's not that long ago, demand started to exceed supply. And of course, companies had to get relatively clever. Now what would happen, right? There are many people that produce this tin, which by the way contains a few very delicious Swiss chocolates. There were a lot of companies that would produce this. So now, it was really not you coming to me, I was coming to you. I would say, would you like to buy this tin of chocolates? And you would say, what price is it? Because you had choice. You could start to compare. And if I said, I'm sorry, I don't have any, what would you do? You go somewhere else. You go somewhere else and buy a tin with chocolates in it. So for the first time, we were actually able to separate really production from consumption, and for the first time, we had to take things to the customer. We had to take things to consumers. And this is also the nascent, and we can see it here, the nascence of the modern brand management as we know it today. I use this picture here of a Ford Model T, as you can see here. This is very much a way where companies started to think, we need to understand these markets, we need to understand what's happening here. Not so much because I care, much more so I can sell you more stuff of the same thing that I've already produced. The rationale here is clearly, it's buy it because it's a better car. It's a very rational way of differentiation. And we're now moving very rapidly to today. And it's all about brand. We focus on differentiation, primarily on emotional triggers. The communication has gone from mass to, actually, it's now a dialogue, and it's two ways. And it's also a time where we can no longer just create what we think is right. It's now a time where we co-create. We co-create value together with our customers in order to produce things that they really, really want. Now, we have moved from producing kind of what we think is right to producing, taking it to you as customers and to the market, to a world where we now co-create. What's next? Where is this going to be heading? It sounds simple, but these are actually relatively difficult transitional concepts at play here. Let me allow to quickly walk over here again. If we look here, for instance, products. So products are no longer products. They have actually become experiences. Futures are no longer rational. They have become solutions, for example. Now, if we look at promotion through integrated communication, it's no longer good enough to shout it from the rooftop. It's become a two-way dialogue. And this is fundamentally changing how we as marketeers operate and how we as marketeers can influence. I'd like to bring this to life with a company I work with quite a lot and that I personally enjoy a lot as well. And it's this one here. Miguel?
Nice Harley.
Yeah, Harley-Davidson is one of these companies that is going through this transition. But think where they've started. They've started in 1903, 111 years ago, in a small shed that we can see here on the picture, in Milwaukee, in north of Chicago in the US. They were just passionate engineers that basically did not much else, to simplify it, than putting an engine in a bicycle. This thing was called the Silent Grey Fellow. And the Silent Grey Fellow was very well thought of and very well recognized because, as you can see on the picture, tarmacked roads didn't exist. It had to be extremely reliable to go from A to B. They were incredibly successful with this, and they grew despite World War I. They grew despite the Great Depression. And then something happened in about the 20s, 30s. What do you think happened? Was it still aspirational to buy a motorcycle? No, cars, right? If you had the means, you would no longer aspire to buy a motorbike, but you would now think, I can actually afford a car. Thanks to Henry Ford, his Model T, economies of scale, mass production, and so forth, I would now aspire to to purchase a car. What does this mean for a company like Harley-Davidson? They took a very deliberate choice in 1937. Think about this, 1937, they took the deliberate choice to position themselves as a lifestyle brand. Here's an advertisement that we can see from 1937. It's very small, but you can read the word fun on there. You can see, if we zoom this out, that it talks about outdoor. You could see that it talks about fun and sports. And look at the picture. This is no bike to go from A to B or to go to work. This is about enjoying the outdoors, the father and the son or two colleagues enjoying a ride on a Harley on a Sunday in 1937. Now they've really done a super job at keeping that. In 1983, they've created the Harley Owners Group. The Harley Owners Group is probably the largest manufacturer-sponsored community, not as in digital, but it's still a social community, 1983. And it's bonding customers to the point where they're so loyal and so proud to be part of it that they, of course, a lot of them, might put a tattoo onto their bodies because of the values of what this represents. They've moved from product, very simple product, rational, get me from A to B, to selling experiences. They've moved from features, build me a bigger fuel tank so I can go further with my motorcycle, to solutions, breaking out, rebellion, leaving everyday life behind. And for some middle-aged man, of course, this is a solution, particularly when they go through their midlife crisis of finding newly found freedom as well. And it works incredibly well for Harley-Davidson. They've gone from value-added product-oriented, engineers thinking, probably should put a few more horsepower into this engine, it's surely what our customers want, to co-creation of value, to taking customers into the creation of their next generations of motorcycle. Last year, they've launched Project Rushmore, and it's the first time they actually used the concept of customer centricity and using customers as part of the development process for promotional purposes. A short clip to explain this, please.
Play track 1.
Built by all of us, for all of us. The next Harley-Davidson motorcycles.
Right, built by all of us, for all of us, as a customer-facing statement to say we are all part of co-creating Harley-Davidson's future. See what I mean by this? If you look at this chart and we take this back, what they have successfully managed, very deliberately, is moving from a product-centric organization to someone that actually sells you much more than a motorcycle. Even Willie G. Davidson used to say, you don't buy a motorcycle, this is just a ticket into the world. But everything else that comes with it is what you buy. From futures to solutions, from value added to co-creation of value jointly with customers, from a product-oriented market to customer centricity, working with customers. It's a fundamental shift, and it's unfortunate that a lot of companies today are still very much thinking about product first. Now, they clearly have seen something, they're doing really well, and if we look to the future, 2 weeks ago, they've launched Project Livewire. You can see this here. It's the first ever electric Harley-Davidson. So they don't just launch this and send it into dealerships. Launching means presenting to the market. So they're touring the US currently with this, getting customers to ride, to drive it, and to provide feedback. It will come to Europe next year. And only then, in 2016 or 17, will it actually be available eventually on the market. So Harley is an incredibly strong brand. Its market capitalization is about $15 billion US, and Interbrand, many of you might be familiar with Interbrand, is a company that values or evaluates brand, or they put the financial value to the equity inherent in brand. Values it still as one of the most valuable brands in the world, amongst the top 100. So brand clearly is here to act as an identifier. It separates us from competition. It simplifies choice, because if we trust in it, it's much easier to choose. And of course, it's also valuable for companies. We'll come back to this later on in our session on luxury as well. There's financial value in brands. Here is an Interbrand ranking. If we look at this Interbrand ranking, you can see I've only taken a snapshot out of it. And we'll look at the first 5 to simplify things. Brand equity can be defined in many ways and aspects, but for the benefit of today, let's just capture that brand today within the company also always has the CFO looking at it, thinking, how do we value it and how will it reflect the valuation of our brand onto the stock market? So if we look at the top 5 here, what are those brands? Let me zoom this up. So we have Apple, Google, Coca-Cola, IBM, and Microsoft as the most valuable brands. Well, the first thing, remember, brand management was invented very early on in the 30s by Procter & Gamble, actually, in the US. It's not a big surprise, actually. All of these brands are still, today, American. These brands, if we look a little bit further, actually, 3 of them didn't exist when I was born. So some of them are quite new. There's specifically a reason for this, because 4 out of these 5 brands are now technology brands. Can you see what is disruptive our times in marketing? And can you see how that creates value for brands if you do it right? Now, Apple's brand equity here is too small to read. It's nearly 100 billion US dollars. Do you know how much 100 billion US dollars is? Anyone an idea? What you could do with 100 billion dollars? What's the GDP or gross domestic product of Peru? 130 billion? You could buy a Starbucks latte for every person on this planet for a whole year, every month. Or you can do something more clever with this. You could bail out Greece. They are in big financial troubles. The UN estimates to end world hunger would cost about 30 billion, okay? With 100 billion, you could end world hunger 3 times over. It's how much this brand is worth. Now, quick recap. Marketing is the process of strengthening brand and creating demand for it. It's the most valuable asset you have. Let me say this again, right? I do strongly believe it's the most valuable asset you have. A lot of you will hear or say, our most valuable assets are people. People are critical and important, we'll come back to this. But what's the problem with people? They come and go, okay? Some of these brands are incredibly old or have been around for a very long time. If you do it very carefully over time, and here we're talking about the asset and the valuation for brand, you can create tremendous value. So from a financial perspective, it is the most valuable asset you can have. Marketing is a concept that is in transition, it's not static, and we've moved from product to taking it to market to working with customers jointly. Now things change, and it's probably the only constant we face in life and as marketeers in particular. Before we look at the trends that shape some of the things we do and will be doing in the future, let me run a little test, or a little trial test with you. You're going to see 2 teams playing basketball. One team has white shirts, and one team has black shirts. And I want you to focus on the team in the white shirt and how many times they pass the basketball. Okay? Can we play the clip, please?
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the players wearing white pass the basketball.
Can you stop it, please? Everyone clear? So the winner with the right answer will get this box of industrially revolutionized, really delicious Swiss chocolate. Please do count very carefully. Please.
How many passes did you count?
Stop, please. Right, how many passes do we get? Bueno, 10. A ver, 10. 10. 12. Ok. 13. 13, 13, 13. 17. 15. 14. 16. Can you play, please? 15. Felicidades. Okay, let's play the clip.
This video is from research by Daniel.
Okay, it's not always obvious, right? That should be pretty clear. So enjoy the Swiss chocolates. The correct answer is 15. What you as marketeers really should have seen, of course, is the gorilla. Let's see what's happening around us. I'll go relatively swift through this. The first thing, the world is growing. And it's a good thing. The world is growing quite drastically. Here's a chart of population growth. And what you can see on this is that it took us about 100 years as the world to go from 1 billion from 1850 to 2 billion in 1950. We are now about 7 billion people on this planet, and we will be about 10 billion by 2050. Where is this growth coming from? This growth is not coming from established markets. You can see this in blue. This is the developed world. This growth is coming primarily from Asia and from Africa. And Latin America, to some extent, is still on the plus. But if we look at where real growth is happening, it's in Asia and it's in Africa. How many people do you think work in marketing? It's about 3% of the working population in developed countries, and it's about 1.5% in developing countries. If you do the math, it adds up to about 50 million people. And if you do the math fast forward to 2050, it's going to be about 100 million people working in marketing. So the species of marketeers is not dead, it's growing, and I think it's actually really good that as a discipline and a function, we'll see more people joining the ranks of marketing over the course of the next years. What does this also mean? It translates into growth, into economic growth. This is a current chart where we can see that the US with 14 trillion is still very much leading the pack. GDP, this is, followed closely by the European Communion, and Japan is still the third largest economy worldwide. But it's changing, and it's changing rapidly. It's actually, if you see this, and I put this out here, China is expected to overtake the US by 2020, so 5-6 years from now. The economy will grow. If we look at this, 70 trillion, right? Growth is roughly twice the economy by 2030 and quadrupled by 2050. And who is responsible for this growth? China, you've already seen, the BRIC markets. What does this mean for consumers? If you are an international brand, where are they? And especially, who are they? So let's look at this very briefly. Demographics, of course, is another thing that changes. But if we think about demographics, let's also think about generation and its implications. Let me go very briefly through. We have traditionalists up here. So these are people that are about 70 years old. There's only perhaps 5% or so in the marketplace right now. Technology for them was a vacuum cleaner, okay? And they've always had an attitude of save. Save the money you have, anything you pay for is with cash. Followed by the baby boomers, okay? 50-ish to about 70. Large proportion of our working population, and if we look at technology for them, it's probably a microwave, but it's still, this is not about necessarily being connected. Their attitude is buy now, pay later. If I have to buy it on credit, I will. If I have to get another credit card to pay off my first debt, not a problem. Money just exists on paper. Generation X, my generation, and as we heard earlier today, it's the largest proportion of our workforce today. Well, when I was born, technology was an aspirational thing to have, and we saved money to buy our first Commodore C16 at the time. We had to assimilate this. We also went through times of recessions, and generally, it's fair to say, it's a relatively conservative attitude. It's followed by the millennials. We heard that already today. They will fundamentally shape of what your consumer is going to be, where they are, and what they do. They are actually in this space of technology is intangible. It's everywhere. It's always there. It's not really anything differentiated. They are very much valuing individuality. A lot is about me in terms of attitude. And then we have the next ones, Generation Z, or digital natives. It's not quite clear yet how we can characterize them, but I'm sure research will tell us. Let's look at what's happening. So if you really think for your brands and businesses forward, and brand is the most valuable asset you have, then I encourage you to do a bit of thinking, what will this mean? Well, clearly it's going to be the millennials that are the primary market, as well as digital natives in the future. Let's take a very quick look. This is a group of millennials. At the school of my daughter, she's only 10, but there are 17-year-olds hanging out with mobile phones, and look at what they're doing, okay? And I went over to these guys and say, hey, come on, I mean, you could just talk, right? Because surely you're just texting to one another. What do they say? What would they say? What do you think they said? No. It's not possible. And why is this not possible? Because there are 6 to this conversation. Okay? In our circle of friends, there are 6 people, and it would not be right if we would just talk and exclude them. So clearly, they think not necessarily about the physical location, but the conversation takes place online. Now, fundamental changes here, and if you think about it, this is happening in Japan, it's happening in the US, it's happening here, it's happening everywhere. Millennials, that's the way they grow up. It's the first time we will see a generation coming into the workforce and into the consumer space that has a shared set of values that is actually quite similar around the world. This is going to be very important because they're not just connected to one another here, but also to what's going on in the world. Next are the digital natives. So the digital natives, we don't quite know yet exactly what will characterize them. Technology will be born, it's always there. Clearly, they will also have something that is revolutionary about them. And I found this little clip, have a look of what that might look like. Can we play the clip?
Good afternoon, madam.
Yeah, I'm sorry, officer.
Can I see your papers, please? Hello. Mummy in a bit of a hurry, was she? Step out of the car, madam! Step out of the vehicle now!
Right, we don't know what they will do, but any of you having kids, right, no car journey without an iPad. So the world is also getting smaller. It's getting smaller primarily because of technology, the way we connect, and all the information that this represents. So we've touched on this. I heard Ricardo speaking about this as well. The blue graph is the developed world, and it basically shows the connectivity levels of internet. The yellow and the red graph is the developing world. Okay? First point, 60% of the world's population are not yet connected. 60%. Second point, it's going incredibly fast. Every second, 4 babies are born on this planet. Every second, about 60 smartphones have been received by someone who says, great, I've got the latest smartphone. In the time it took me to tell you this, 100 babies were born and over 1,000 mobile devices have been put into the market. It's super rapid change. Latest estimates really put this at about 2020 for the world to be completely connected. What is connected? We are connecting people with what? With information. We're already there. But what are we also doing? Who knows TripAdvisor? Right? I'm sure it's much more than that. Even the hotel reception has a TripAdvisor board. Okay, who has used TripAdvisor for themselves? Have you used TripAdvisor when you go and travel to a hotel somewhere and check it out and think, what do you think? Is this worth staying there? Is the spa good? Is the view good? Who has used TripAdvisor? Well, okay, or similar platforms. Yeah, quite a lot. Quite a lot. Who has actually written a review on TripAdvisor? Okay, that's quite good as well. But can you see what the issue is here with this? What are we connecting? Not just people with information, we are connecting people with people. For you as marketeers, what's the problem? The opinion of total strangers that you do not know as businesses and brands are more important to build trust than what you have to say as a brand. It's a game changer, it's fundamentally game changer. Let me give you an example. So this is my son, Rafael. He's turned 8 3 weeks ago, and he wanted a remote control car. So I gave him a remote control car, and this is him happily unwrapping it. How did I get this remote control car? Well, I Google. I am one of the 40% that is constantly connected, and I see a remote controlled car, and I see it's actually on Amazon. It's pretty good. What do I do next? I look what people say about this remote control car. And I can see, no, it's pretty good, actually, 4 out of 5 stars. It looks decent enough. So a lot of people have bought it, and they think it's generally good. I can also get it for £5 less right now in the UK. It's a good deal. I buy this. What is building trust here for this brand? It's the aggregation of opinions. If there would only be one person to say, yeah, I'll give this 5 stars, not good enough. It's the aggregation of opinions. Who shapes these opinions? Are you in charge as marketeers to create these opinions? They have real transactional value. If the hotel only has a star, I won't go. If this car would only have 3 stars, I wouldn't have bought it. The customer, of course, the customer is in the driving seat. We're moving incredibly fast. Web 2.0 is connecting people with people. What's next? We are connecting things. The rate of change is doubling every 2 years. The computing power we have at our disposition is doubling every 2 years for the next 5 to 6 years still. So here's a little clip of a company that produces raw material silicon and produces actually glass and how they see the future. Can we play the clip, please? So welcome to the world of the Internet of Things. We have moved beyond just connecting people to information and people to people. It's now about connecting physical things. This is, you can see him here, a gentleman called Andy from IBM Master Inventor, IBM UK, I should say. You can see this at the style and type of his house. Everything's connected in his place. Everything. Look at this, a plant pot. This is a plant pot, and what you can see in this plant pot is a sensor. Okay? It's actually, let me see, it's here, this little white sensor. This little white sensor knows when the plant is thirsty. This little white sensor can send this through my wireless or his wireless to the internet, and I can see on my app which plant is thirsty and needs watering. I can even call my neighbor and say, would you mind? You know, my plant in my living room is desperate for water. Please, could you quickly go over? But what else can I do? I could connect this to the weather forecast. Okay? And I could say, well, actually, if it really is that weather in the UK, which is rarely the case, by the way, but let's assume it is, it's very easy to connect this to a sprinkler system or a system that actually waters my plant automatically. This is today. It's not far away. It's about as far away as your next Apple store. You can buy these for $126. It's coming. It's not that far off. This one here is a company I work with. It's called Black Socks, and what they do is they produce black socks, very high quality black socks, and they sell this in a subscription. So any gentleman, your worries are gone. There's no need for you to sort through socks or go and think about socks every 3 months. You have a new pair of really good quality socks. What they have done is included a chip, an RFID chip in their socks, and it allows them now, or you as a customer through your app, to track your socks. Okay? So gone are the times where you pick up one sock and you think, well, where's the other one? You can just locate it in your app. It can even measure the cycle of how many times your socks have been washed. If I'm clever enough, I can target you and say, your socks have been washed too many times. I think you should really order a new pair of socks. Okay? It even has a scanner, actually, and you can scan the level of blackness in your sock. And if it's not black enough, I can send you another pair. So things like this are happening. This is another one where I think the Internet of Things is really revolutionizing. 3D printing, a printed bicycle, a shoe tailor-made for exactly my feet. We can even print food. It's a company called Foodini in Barcelona. Next spring, they're launching a printer the size of a microwave that can print food. This hamburger here, the bun at least of the hamburger, is printed and then baked, of course. It's no longer handmade. Now, this has downsides as well, negative effects. Look at this. It's called the Liberator. It's a gun. It can actually fire a real bullet. The cost of printing this at home is about $25. The blueprint, you can download it, and it took the US government several months and 100,000 downloads to actually pull it. The cost of a 3D printer, an enterprise 3D printer, is about $1,200 US. Printing things for the real world, whether it's good or bad, is close. Look at the keys. There's a company in Belgium, in Brussels. I can scan my keys and send them the scan of my keys. If I get locked out, I simply call them up, and in a matter of hours, they will print the key, come to my house, and I can get in without breaking the lock. Think about it if someone who shouldn't have it takes a picture of your key. Things like this are really happening fast. What does it mean? Well, if we think about what that does and generates, we'll come to big data and what that means, but it does this. It revolutionizes the channels. There's a proliferation of channels. Everything is going digital. I'm not telling you anything new here. The way of media consumption is changing. I no longer just watch TV. I do this whilst I surf on my iPad. I'm also connected on LinkedIn and Facebook and what have you. What does that mean for you as marketeers? How are you going to target me? How are you going to get your message to me? And how much promotional spend and effort is needed to do this? Clearly, what this does is generate a lot of data. Nothing new, again here. Really a lot of data. For what? For the benefit of being ever more accurate in how you as marketeers target your customers or your target audience. I can optimize the search engine. I can actually retarget you through very clever ways. I can set a cookie on your machine, and I can tell you, because I know, right now I'm going to give you a call. Because you're on my website, you're looking at booking a flight, you've checked 5 times, you haven't booked. If I know you, I can either say, wait, you want to chat? Would you like to talk? Maybe I can help you. Or if I have your contact, I could even call you. So this is happening. But what does that mean? This is nothing new, I hope, for you as marketeers. Think back, okay? Industrial Revolution. For the first time, we were able to separate production from consumption. What did we not see? What was not available to us? What could we not know or didn't care is means of production, okay? We did not know how these goods were made. The terrible conditions of labor force, child labor in these times was absolutely common. As consumers, we couldn't care less. The more stuff you gave me, the cheaper it was, generally the better. The next thing I fundamentally believe and heard a glimpse that some of these might actually be happening here already, it is getting better. I do think that all of this will lead to a better world, where it's no longer good enough to just have a corporate social responsibility plan, meaning through marketing communications, let's tell the world that we're also doing a little bit of good things. You actually have to do this. You have to build honesty and integrity into your product, into your value chain, and into your brand. Why? This is what I do. I'm at the airport, and I wanted to buy a video camera for quite a long time. So I see this. What do? I take out my app, my Amazon app, I scan it. What do I see? I see if the price that they're charging me in the airport is more or less okay. Should I take it with me, or should I just put it in the basket? What do other people think? Is this a good product or not? What do other people think if something goes wrong? Does Canon actually provide a service that is good enough? Should something break? It's happening. What is happening next? Here's another example. This is a package of strawberries, and it's February, and we are in the UK. Strawberries do not grow in February in the UK, but here they are. But what's amazing about this, You can't read it, but I'll tell you what this says. You can get 2 of these packages for £4. It's the equivalent of about $6. In February, I can get strawberries in my local supermarket for a price that is equivalent of what strawberries would normally cost. It's not expensive. What else do I see? I think, well, how is that possible? You can't see it here either. There's a plane. So it tells me there is a plane on these strawberries. They have been flown in from Florida. They have been put on a boat. They have been picked, put on a boat, shipped. Probably, on a plane, because otherwise they go bad. On a lorry in a distribution center, and they land locally in my store, and I can consume them or buy them. What will the millennials do? And certainly the digital natives. They do this. They scan this like everything else. And what you will have to demonstrate is that the value chain is fair and transparent and honest. Not possible in the Industrial Revolution, very possible, and it will very soon move beyond just comparing products for rational reasons. And I want to see that you treat your labor force honestly. I want to see that they get a fair share of the value created. I want to see that you as a brand don't just say that, but you actually do this. And if the light is green, I take it. If it's not green, it's commoditized. I buy something else or I go somewhere else. And I might actually click, don't buy this, because this is not honest. And I will share it with other people too. So things are changing super rapidly. If you don't watch out, this is what happens. Can we play the clip, please? Right, so if you don't watch out, it will come a lot quicker than you think. There's plenty of examples in recent times. Think of Kodak, for example, didn't see the revolution and the nascent digital photography coming. There are many other industries that are just blindly continuing in their way. Now, the world is changing fast. If we wrap this up quickly, we are more connected than ever. The implication, of course, is data, but not just for the benefit of targeting more consumers. It will bring more transparency, and it will lead ultimately to a better world. It's fundamentally a good thing of what's happening. And marketing is the drivers and the people that are actually here in the organizations to recognize and see this. And the biggest shift is not in technology. That's just a disruptor. The biggest shift is in the value systems that are going to be driving consumer behavior in your customers. So what? What does this mean, right, for you as marketeers? Remember this chart here. We are moving very quickly from product to experiences, from promotion to dialogue, from a product-oriented world to a consumer-facing or consumer-centric organization. What it means, I do strongly believe, is that purchase decisions don't necessarily happen at the point of purchase, not always. And you need to place your brand, your product in the hearts and minds of your audience. And doing that is not just a question of rationality, it has to do with brand. And I'm not telling you anything new here. What I do observe and see that B2B, business to business, increasingly looks to this way of differentiating their products as well. Here's an example I recently came across that I thought is actually great. So the company is Volvo. They sell big industrial trucks to companies that buy fleets of trucks, and the way they demonstrated in a very emotional way the differentiation of dynamic stability control is quite an interesting one. Can we play the movie clip, please?
I've had my ups and downs, my fair share of bumpy roads and heavy winds. That's what made me what I am today. Now I stand here before you. What you see is a body crafted to perfection, a pair of legs engineered to defy the laws of physics, and a mindset to master the most epic of splits.
Okay, the most amazing thing about this, it's not a stunt, or it is a stunt, but it's not a trick. He actually did this, okay? So the credibility that this builds for what they do is superb. You take Jean-Claude Van Damme, you take Enya, a very emotional soundtrack, a very emotionally appealing setting, and you get actually a pretty rational message of stability control across. The customer's in the driving seat. So this is me on the passenger seat, and the customer is next to me. And what's important here is that his opinion matters. His opinion matters not just because I want to sell him a car, of course, I'd love to sell him, and he actually did buy an Aston Martin, not just today, but I want his opinion in order for him to be part of co-creation. I want him to be part of what his car is going to be in the future. Listen to your customers. If you have retail operations, spend time with them. How many of you do this? You spend a week in your retail operations. When you have a new starter, do they actually spend time in retail? Walk in their shoes. Because customer relationship management is no longer a discipline of system, process, and computers to send messages out to consumers. It's flipping. It's customer-managed relationships, meaning that customers are in charge of when they communicate, how they communicate, what and how they want to be communicated with. It's them that drive it. From customer relationship management to customer managed relations. From big to little, there's a big shift happening. And I could all of you encourage, if you haven't, I haven't written it, but Malcolm Gladwell has, you might know of him from The Tipping Point. And his latest book talks about this principle of David and Goliath. And the message really is that you can be small and nimble, and you do not necessarily face the economies of scale issues that you would have faced previously. WhatsApp, you all know WhatsApp? Yeah, probably. An instant messaging system was founded a few years ago by two people. They were sold to Facebook for the astonishing amount of $20 billion US. Okay. Think about this. Ford Motor Company employs 224,000 people around the world. Their market cap is about 60 billion. Do you know how many people WhatsApp employs now? 55. Economies of scale are no longer a barrier to enter. What does this mean? What does it mean for marketeers? Can we still think we need a big idea and pay a lot of money for it? And we put this big idea in a big consumer-facing campaign, and we spend lots of money on pushing one simple message. Here's an example of what I believe this means. The creative canvas for marketeers is a lot more fragmented, it's a lot smaller, and you do a lot more frequent interactions with a lot diversified content that is a lot more relevant for your target audience. And you don't necessarily have to spend millions all the time. This is something we did at Aston Martin, celebrating 100 years a year ago. To kick off the centenary celebrations, we thought, okay, we're going to fly the latest model, the Vanquish, up to the Burj Al Arab, the most luxurious hotel in Dubai, one of the tallest one, and never has anyone before flown a car up to the Burj Al Arab. So media was quite excited of this stunt. We were quite excited because we could transport two key messages. One was, it's about the future, and it's a celebration of taking the brand to more people, to more places, into new markets, and it's a great association with luxury. This is a very short clip of what this actually looked like. If we could play the clip, please. So this is a short clip. There's a much longer version, and it's one of the most viewed clips that we did for Aston Martin. But the point here is, this was turned around in a matter of days. There wasn't a big, huge structure of agencies and lots of money being spent on planning and on execution either. It was turned around with relatively little money in a matter of days, and it proved to be a very successful way of demonstrating the messages to both media as well as to staff within Aston Martin as well of celebrating 100 years or kickstarting it. The next one is power of now. Everything is now, right? I don't need just one mobile phone, I probably need 3 or 4. And in the past 1 hour, I am almost certain most of you will have not been able to stop, and you have checked your emails. And you've probably checked that 10 times, and you might actually have received 10 emails too. Everything is now. On the flip side of it, if I do want to detach, I also have to do this now. Instant gratification, I cannot wait. And Aston Martin generally will take 3 to 6 months to deliver and to build. Consumers are moving away from this. They can't wait. If I buy that and if I pay this much money, I want it now. So the power of now is an incredible, powerful concept for marketeers to understand that is happening. How do we take advantage of this as marketeers? Although I don't quite like it, but I'll still make the example. This is my daughter, Isabella. She's 10. She doesn't have an iPhone yet. She plays on mine. She has her favorite game, and the favorite game is called Temple Run. Some of you might actually know it. It's a very good way to train your reactive skills. It's actually a pretty cool game. We only have the free version of this. Okay, she plays this, and then she gets thrown out of the rail tracks, and she loses a life. What do you do in the moments of now, in the power of now? Because the game knows she's lost, it offers her the ability to do what? Watch a video. If you watch this video, I'm going to give you a life. If you're going to share my game on social media, which she can't, but the game obviously can, I'm going to give you another life. Right now, instant gratification, so you can watch that video. You have to. You can't click like on YouTube, skip ad. You've got to watch it to get another life, and you can continue playing. Power of now. Let me summarize in the next 7 or 8 minutes of what we have gone through. Brands are the most valuable assets you have. I do think the positioning brands in terms of creating emotional bonds, even if you're B2B, is a really critical one to get our heads around. It's very easy to think rational, and we are all driven by optimizing systems for the benefit of generating more profit with less resource. I do think the flip side is a trend that will yield higher margins and higher returns. Customers are in the driving seat, they choose. Customer relationship management, it's great, but you can't think of it as a technology or a system or a process. It's about the people, it's about the consumers, and they manage the relationship, customer-managed relationships. So the closer you are, the more you walk with them, the more you spend time with them, the better. And how do you translate this into organizational change? How does your marketing director, yourself, if you're in this position, how do you take that, embed it into organizations where you still have executives thinking, we've got to hit the next quarterly profit target, and it's all about just making sure we've got the right product. The consumer sort of comes afterwards. What is the solution you offer? Do you think we have a product, or do you think we have a solution? And if so, what problem does this solve? What experience do you create, no matter who you are, no matter what brand or product you are? Are you a creator of power of now moments? And if so, how can you take advantage of these power of now concepts? How are you charging your brands positively? And how much time and money do you spend telling the world about how great your product or your brand is versus how much you actually invest in making your product or your service a better one? 3 things that I would like to leave with you before we go for the well-deserved coffee break. Firstly, it is about brand. It is about building and investing into the brand and into your product. Because quite frankly, I don't think we have another choice. The brand and the product needs to be inherently so good and so strong that it's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. We can only do so much with promotion. And the level of influence our promotional spend has is proportionally decreasing as connectivity with customers goes up, because you're no longer necessarily in control of what that message is. So your brand and your product has to exude and genuinely be up to par. Next one. You're mostly, I would imagine, familiar with this framework. Product, place, promotion, price, the 4 Ps of marketing, the traditional framework of marketing. It's not dead. It's not dead. But it was invented in 1948. It's an old concept, and we've driven it and exploited it. It's time for a change. It needs to evolve. The way I believe this needs to evolve, it needs to start taking people into consideration. People as in your customers, your staff, but also people as in how do we jointly create value? How do we jointly create products? Process. How do we do this within our organizations? What is the most efficient way to make sure this doesn't just become a fluffy exercise? What is the process by which our boards and our executive colleagues will actually fully buy into this? Harley-Davidson is a great example. I'd love to see much more and many more companies and examples in the world taking this on board at the very highest level within their organizations. And finally, you have to build integrity and honesty into your products and into your brands. Because remember, it's not technology that is the biggest game changer. In a sense, it's a hygiene factor, we all know about it. It's the value systems and the belief systems that are going to influence consumer behavior. And it needs to be an integral part of what you stand for as a brand and how your product is integrated into your business. And then finally, who is making this change? Who is responsible for this? It's you. It's the marketeers. It's your marketing directors, your chief marketing officers. You are the change makers that take this, bundle it, bring it into your organization, and then drive change from within forwards. So marketing as a discipline, as a function, is not dead at all. It's growing, and it's a good thing. It's also growing in terms of its influence. According to IBM's latest CMO study, they do this every year. It's a great study. Actually, I encourage you to have a look through it and flip through some of the implications. The CMO, right after the CFO, is the second most influential executive within organizations. So reporting to the CEO, the CMO. What does that mean? Right? You can no longer just think promotion or marketing communications. You are holistic. You're not just change makers, you're also the ones that join up the dots between manufacturing, engineering, design, supply chain, retail management, and so forth. It's much more holistic as a discipline. So I actually do think that marketing as a discipline and a function is moving up the channel within organizations. But we've got to grab this and look at these changes for the benefit of making products, brands, and our organizations better. Thank you very much. We'll talk about the luxury in a minute, but thank you and enjoy the coffee break.